Imagine a world where every moment, every season, and every year aligns perfectly with a divine rhythm set by the Creator himself. A world where the rise and fall of nations, the movements of the stars, and even the cycles of time are all governed by laws written not on earthly scrolls, but on celestial tablets in heaven. What if I told you this sacred knowledge exists, hidden in a book banned from most of the Christian world? This is the Book of Jubilees, a text so bold, so detailed, and so cosmic in scope that it was deemed too controversial for mainstream Christianity. The Bible we know offers glimpses of creation and the lives of the patriarchs, but Jubilees dares to go further. It claims to hold the missing pieces, the hidden stories, and the deeper truths about God's eternal plan. This ancient text, preserved in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, takes us beyond Genesis, offering a retelling filled with heavenly secrets, angelic interventions, and divine laws meant to guide humanity. Jubilees begins where it all started, with creation itself. But unlike the familiar account in Genesis, this book reveals the unseen forces behind the physical world. According to Jubilees, the very structure of time was ordained by God on the first day of creation. Time, as we know it, wasn't just a concept. It was a divine design, entrusted to angels who regulate the cosmic order. The book tells us that before the sun, moon, and stars illuminated the heavens, angels were created to govern the universe. These heavenly beings, each assigned a specific role, became the guardians of seasons, celestial movements, and the sacred cycles of time. This divine orchestration wasn't just about the mechanics of the cosmos, it was about harmony. Humanity, as part of creation, was meant to live in alignment with this sacred rhythm. To ensure this, God established a solar calendar consisting of 364 days. Unlike the irregularity of the lunar calendar, this system was perfect, divided into 4 equal seasons, each containing exactly 91 days. In this calendar, Sabbaths and sacred festivals never drifted. They always fell exactly as God intended, year after year. Jubilees warns that abandoning this solar calendar leads to chaos, not just in timekeeping, but in humanity's relationship with God. Deviating from the divine rhythm disrupts the sacred order, a theme woven throughout the book. The lunar calendar, widely adopted by ancient cultures, is portrayed in Jubilees as a corruption, a distortion that distances humanity from the Creator's design. But the revelations of Jubilees don't stop at the structure of time. It goes on to reveal a hidden history, a day-by-day account of creation and the lives of the patriarchs. Did you know that angels were present during creation, assisting in the formation of the natural world? According to Jubilees, these celestial beings didn't just serve as bystanders. They were active participants, executing God's commands and maintaining order in the universe. One of the book's most striking claims is that God's laws didn't begin with Moses on Mount Sinai. Instead, these commandments were eternal, written on heavenly tablets and passed down to humanity through angels. Adam, Noah, and Abraham all received these divine laws long before they were inscribed on stone tablets for the Israelites. The Sabbath, for example, wasn't just a commandment for the Jewish people. It was established at the dawn of creation as an eternal covenant between God and all of humanity. In Jubilees, every detail matters. The book expands on familiar stories, offering new insights that challenge the way we understand the Bible. Take Abraham, for instance. While Genesis portrays him as a man of faith, Jubilees presents him as a revolutionary figure. It tells the story of a young Abraham who destroyed his father's idols and rejected the pagan practices of his time, choosing instead to follow the one true God. This act of defiance wasn't just personal, it was cosmic, aligning Abraham with the divine order and setting the stage for his descendants to become the chosen people. Even the story of Noah and the flood takes on new dimensions in Jubilees. While Genesis gives us the basics, Jubilees dives deeper into the corruption of the earth, focusing on the Nephilim, the offspring of fallen angels and human women. These beings, whose actions led to the wickedness that triggered the flood, are given more attention in Jubilees. The book emphasizes that Noah's survival wasn't just about preserving humanity. It was about safeguarding the sacred laws and restoring harmony to the world. The Book of Jubilees paints a picture of history that is both cosmic and personal. It ties the actions of humanity to the greater workings of the universe, showing that every choice, every law, and every act of obedience carries eternal significance. This is not just a story of the past, it's a call to return to the divine rhythm, to realign with the sacred time established at creation. Why was such a profound book rejected by the early church? Was it too radical, too detailed, or too cosmic in its claims? Perhaps its insistence on a solar calendar conflicted with the established traditions of the time. Or maybe its portrayal of angels as mediators of God's laws and its expansion of patriarchal stories were considered too speculative. Whatever the reason, the Book of Jubilees remains a treasure trove of hidden knowledge, offering a glimpse into the unseen world and the eternal plan of God. Imagine witnessing the birth of time itself, a moment when the universe is set into motion under the watchful gaze of angelic beings. The Book of Jubilees doesn't just tell us about the creation of the physical world. It reveals the divine blueprint behind the cosmos, showing how every second, every day, and every year was meticulously planned by God. This is where Jubilees departs from Genesis. It introduces us to a world where time is not just a tool for humanity, but a sacred construct that governs the entire universe. According to the Book of Jubilees, the creation of time was one of God's first acts. On the very first day of creation, before forming the earth or placing the stars in the sky, God created angels to regulate the rhythms of the cosmos. These angels were tasked with overseeing the movement of the sun, moon, and stars, ensuring that the universe adhered to the divine order. Time was not random. It was sacred, governed by laws that mirrored the perfection of God's will. This cosmic calendar is one of Jubilees' most striking revelations. Unlike the irregular lunar calendar adopted by many ancient cultures, Jubilees describes a solar calendar of 364 days, divided into 4 seasons of exactly 91 days each. Each season was further divided into 13 weeks, ensuring that Sabbaths and holy days always fell on the correct date. This system wasn't just practical, it was perfect, aligning humanity with the very heartbeat of creation. But humanity didn't stay aligned with this divine rhythm. Jubilees warns that when humans stray from the solar calendar and adopt systems like the lunar calendar, it leads to chaos, both spiritual and physical. The lunar calendar's irregularity causes sacred days to shift, disrupting the harmony between humanity and God. Jubilees portrays this as more than a mistake. It's a deviation from God's laws, one with profound consequences for humanity's relationship with the Creator. This sacred calendar also served as the foundation for the Sabbaths and festivals that marked the rhythm of life for God's chosen people. In Jubilees, these holy days weren't just traditions. They were cosmic appointments, set in place by God and observed by the angels themselves. The Sabbath in particular is elevated to a cosmic principle. It wasn't just a day of rest. It was a reflection of the divine order, a weekly reminder of the harmony that governed all of creation. Jubilees ties this idea of sacred time to humanity's purpose. To live according to the divine calendar was to align oneself with God's will, to participate in the order and perfection of creation. This wasn't just about keeping track of days. It was about living in harmony with the universe as God intended. The Sabbath and other holy days became acts of obedience, reflections of the eternal laws written on the heavenly tablets. What's fascinating is how Jubilees connects this cosmic calendar to the patriarchs. It portrays figures like Noah, Abraham, and Jacob as living in alignment with the solar calendar, keeping the Sabbaths and holy days as part of their covenant with God. These actions weren't just acts of personal faith. They were cosmic in their significance, aligning the patriarchs with the rhythm of creation itself. Jubilees doesn't just recount the story of creation. It expands it, offering a vision of a universe governed by divine order. It challenges us to see time not as a human construct, but as a sacred gift, one that connects us to the Creator. Through its detailed descriptions of the solar calendar and the role of angels, Jubilees reveals a world where every moment carries eternal significance. If the world were to return to this sacred calendar, what would change? Would humanity find itself more in tune with God's will, more aligned with the perfection of creation? Jubilees invites us to consider these questions, to reflect on the rhythms that govern our lives and whether they bring us closer to or farther from the Creator. If you could peer beyond the physical world and glimpse the machinery of creation, you'd find something extraordinary, a celestial hierarchy of angels maintaining the delicate balance of the universe. The Book of Jubilees doesn't just expand on Genesis, it unveils the hidden forces that govern reality. These angelic beings, created on the first day, are not just servants of God. They are His agents, tasked with executing divine commands and upholding the sacred order. According to Jubilees, angels are far more involved in human history than most of us realize. They don't just deliver messages or protect individuals. They play an essential role in the very structure of creation. The book describes a celestial system in which angels oversee the movements of the heavens, ensuring that the sun rises, the stars shine, and the seasons change. Their work reflects God's meticulous design, a cosmic symphony where every element plays its part. But these angels aren't just cosmic caretakers. Jubilees portrays them as mediators of God's laws, entrusted with delivering divine commandments to humanity. When Adam was created, it wasn't only God who instructed him. Angels were sent to teach him the laws of purity, sacrifice, and worship. These laws weren't invented at Sinai. They were eternal, written on heavenly tablets, and upheld by angels long before Moses was born. This theme continues throughout the patriarchal narratives. Noah, for example, didn't just receive instructions for building the ark. Jubilees reveals that angels taught him how to live in accordance with God's laws after the flood. Similarly, Abraham was guided by angelic beings who helped him reject idolatry and align his life with divine principles. Even Jacob's dreams, filled with ladders and celestial visions, point to the close relationship between angels and the human story. One of the most striking aspects of Jubilees is its portrayal of angels as guardians of time itself. These beings don't just exist in the spiritual realm, they actively regulate the cosmic calendar. The book describes how angels ensure that the solar calendar remains in harmony with God's plan, even as humanity drifts toward disobedience. When humans adopt irregular calendars, it's seen as a rejection of the angels' work and, by extension, a rebellion against God. But not all angels remain faithful. Jubilees introduces the concept of fallen angels, beings who abandon their divine duties and corrupt the natural order. These fallen ones, often associated with the Nephilim, are portrayed as catalysts for chaos and sin. Their disobedience mirrors humanity's own struggles with temptation, creating a cosmic conflict that plays out on both spiritual and earthly planes. This idea of cosmic warfare is central to Jubilees. The book describes a spiritual battle in which angels strive to maintain order while dark forces seek to undermine God's plan. Humanity, caught in the middle, is called to align itself with the righteous angels by following divine laws. Every act of obedience becomes an act of spiritual resistance, a way to participate in the cosmic struggle between good and evil. Jubilees also emphasizes the interconnectedness of angels and humanity. The laws given to the patriarchs weren't just for their benefit. They were part of a larger cosmic order that governed both heaven and earth. When Adam kept the Sabbath, he wasn't just obeying a command. He was participating in a rhythm that angels themselves observed. This connection between the celestial and the earthly highlights the unity of creation, showing that every action has eternal significance. As you read Jubilees, you begin to see the world in a new light. Every sunrise, every change of season, every sacred day is a reminder of the unseen forces that hold the universe together. The book challenges us to recognize the divine order behind our daily lives and to live in harmony with it. By aligning ourselves with the angels' work and following God's laws, we become part of a story that stretches beyond time and space. a story written on heavenly tablets and upheld by the Creator himself. What if the laws we associate with Moses and Mount Sinai weren't introduced there for the first time? What if they were eternal, existing since the foundation of the world? The Book of Jubilees makes this astonishing claim, revealing that God's commandments were not a new covenant for Israel, but an ancient and universal code, written on heavenly tablets and passed down through the patriarchs. This idea radically transforms the way we understand biblical history, connecting figures like Adam, Noah, and Abraham to the laws we see later in Exodus. Jubilees introduces us to the concept of the heavenly tablets, divine records inscribed with all of God's laws. These laws, the book claims, govern not only humanity but also the angelic realm. They encompass everything from the observance of the Sabbath to purity laws, dietary restrictions, and sacrificial practices. By following these commandments, humanity aligns itself with the cosmic order, participating in a divine rhythm that mirrors the harmony of heaven. The patriarchs, according to Jubilees, were the first custodians of these laws. Adam, for example, was taught by angels to observe the Sabbath as a day of rest, mirroring the rhythm of creation. This wasn't just a human tradition, it was a cosmic principle rooted in the very fabric of the universe. Adam's observance of the Sabbath marked the beginning of a sacred covenant between God and humanity, one that would be renewed with each generation. Noah's story, too, takes on new dimensions in Jubilees. After the flood, Noah is depicted not only as a survivor, but as a lawgiver, entrusted with restoring God's commandments on earth. He is taught to offer sacrifices, maintain purity, and live according to the sacred calendar. These laws weren't arbitrary. They were a blueprint for preserving the harmony of creation. Noah's obedience ensured that the post-flood world would remain aligned with God's will, at least for a time. Abraham's role in Jubilees is equally profound. The book portrays him as a revolutionary figure, rejecting the idolatry of his father's household and committing himself fully to the one true God. This wasn't just a personal journey. It was a cosmic mission. Abraham received direct guidance from angels, who taught him the laws of holiness, sacrifice, and moral conduct. These weren't new revelations. They were eternal truths, passed down from Adam and Noah and written on the heavenly tablets. One of the most striking elements of Jubilees is its portrayal of circumcision. In Genesis, circumcision is introduced as a covenant between God and Abraham. But Jubilees takes it a step further, claiming that circumcision was not just a symbol for Abraham's descendants. It was an eternal ordinance, established at the beginning of creation. The book describes this practice as a way of aligning with the divine order, a physical sign of humanity's commitment to God's eternal laws. Jubilees also emphasizes the significance of sacrifice, portraying it as a universal practice that predates the Mosaic Law. Adam, Noah, and Abraham all offered sacrifices as acts of worship and obedience. These rituals weren't just about atonement, they were a way of participating in the harmony of creation, reflecting the eternal covenant between God and His creation. Every sacrifice, every act of obedience, was a reminder of humanity's role in the cosmic order. But these laws weren't just for individuals. They were meant to shape entire nations. Jubilees highlights the descendants of the patriarchs as stewards of these eternal laws. Jacob, for instance, is portrayed as a custodian of the divine commandments, passing them down to his 12 sons. Each tribe was given a specific role in preserving the sacred calendar and upholding God's laws. The nation of Israel, as descendants of Jacob, was chosen to be the keepers of this eternal covenant, ensuring that God's laws would be observed for all generations. Jubilees challenges us to see the Bible's laws in a new light. They aren't just rules for one group of people at one point in time. They are eternal principles, rooted in the very structure of creation. By connecting the patriarchs to these laws, Jubilees invites us to reflect on the universality of God's commandments and their relevance for all humanity. This perspective transforms our understanding of the Bible, showing us a world where every action, every law, and every tradition is part of a cosmic story written on heavenly tablets. What if the events leading up to the Great Flood were far more complex and cosmic in scale than the Genesis account suggests? The Book of Jubilees expands on this critical moment in biblical history, introducing us to the Nephilim, mighty beings born of the union between fallen angels and human women. These figures, shrouded in mystery, represent a catastrophic disruption of God's divine order, leading to a level of corruption so severe that it threatened all of creation. Jubilees doesn't merely recount the flood as a natural disaster. It frames it as a cosmic reset, a divine intervention necessary to restore harmony to a world thrown into chaos. According to the book, the Nephilim were not just physically powerful, they were agents of moral and spiritual decay. Their very existence blurred the boundaries between heaven and earth, introducing forbidden knowledge and corrupt practices that spread rapidly among humanity. The fallen angels, referred to as watchers in Jubilees and other ancient texts, descended to earth and abandoned their heavenly posts. They taught humanity secrets that were not meant to be known, such as the use of metals to craft weapons and ornaments, as well as knowledge of sorcery and enchantments. These teachings accelerated humanity's descent into sin, distorting God's creation and setting the stage for the flood. The Nephilim, as offspring of these fallen angels, became symbols of unchecked pride and power. Their influence was so pervasive that Jubilees describes them as contributing directly to the corruption of all flesh, humans, animals, and even the earth itself. Their violence and immorality knew no bounds, and their actions defiled everything they touched. This widespread corruption grieved God, leading to the decision to cleanse the earth through the flood. What makes Jubilees unique is its emphasis on the spiritual dimensions of this corruption. The book explains that the fallen angels did not merely introduce physical and moral chaos, they also disrupted the sacred rhythms of time and the divine order of creation. By spreading their influence, they undermined the laws written on the heavenly tablets, creating a world where humanity and nature were entirely out of sync with God's will. Noah's role in this narrative becomes even more significant in Jubilees. He is portrayed as a righteous man chosen not only to preserve humanity, but also to uphold the sacred laws that the fallen angels had tried to erase. After the flood, Noah is given explicit instructions by God and the angels on how to restore order to the earth. He is taught the laws of purity, sacrifice, and timekeeping, ensuring that the post-flood world would be built on a foundation of obedience to the divine order. One of the most fascinating aspects of Jubilees is its portrayal of the aftermath of the flood. The book describes how Noah's descendants were warned about the dangers of falling back into corruption. God establishes a covenant with Noah, symbolized by the rainbow, and renews the sacred laws that had been disrupted. This covenant wasn't just a promise to never flood the earth again. It was a call to maintain the harmony of creation by living in accordance with God's commandments. Jubilees also addresses the lingering influence of the fallen angels. While many of them were bound and cast into darkness, their leader, Mastema, is allowed to remain active, albeit under God's control. Mastema represents the forces of temptation and rebellion, a reminder that the struggle between good and evil continues even after the flood. Humanity is called to resist his influence by adhering to the divine laws and aligning with the angels who remained faithful. This expanded narrative challenges us to see the flood not just as a historical event, but as a pivotal moment in the cosmic battle between order and chaos. The corruption of the Nephilim, the rebellion of the fallen angels, and the righteousness of Noah all point to a deeper truth, that humanity's choices have eternal consequences, shaping the very fabric of creation. Jubilees invites us to reflect on our own role in this cosmic story, asking whether we will align ourselves with God's will or contribute to the corruption of his world. Abraham, revered as the father of nations in the Bible, takes on an even greater role in the Book of Jubilees. This text expands on his life, portraying him not just as a man of faith, but as a pivotal figure in God's cosmic plan. Jubilees gives us a deeper understanding of Abraham's journey, revealing how he aligned himself with divine laws and became a model of obedience and righteousness. The story of Abraham in Jubilees begins with his rejection of idolatry. While Genesis mentions his departure from his father's household, Jubilees gives us vivid details of a young Abraham growing up in a world steeped in pagan practices. Terah, Abraham's father, was an idol maker, crafting false gods for worship. Jubilees recounts how Abraham, even as a youth, recognized the emptiness of these idols. In an act of defiance, he destroyed his father's idols, setting himself apart from the corruption of his time. This rejection of idolatry wasn't just an act of rebellion, it was the beginning of Abraham's alignment with the divine order. Jubilees portrays him as a seeker of truth, guided by angels who revealed to him the laws of God. These laws weren't new. They were the eternal commandments written on the heavenly tablets. By obeying these laws, Abraham became a participant in the cosmic rhythm established at creation. One of the most striking revelations in Jubilees is that Abraham observed the Sabbath and followed purity laws long before they were formally given to Israel. He kept the sacred calendar, offered sacrifices, and lived in accordance with the divine commandments. This portrayal challenges the traditional understanding of the law as beginning with Moses, suggesting instead that it was an eternal covenant upheld by the righteous from the very beginning. Jubilees also emphasizes Abraham's role as a teacher and lawgiver. He wasn't just a passive recipient of divine revelation. He actively passed these truths on to his descendants. Isaac and Jacob, in particular, were taught to observe the laws of God, ensuring that the covenant would continue through their lineage. Jubilees highlights the generational aspect of this covenant, showing how the obedience of one patriarch set the foundation for the faithfulness of the entire nation of Israel. The covenant of circumcision, introduced in Genesis, takes on a cosmic dimension in Jubilees. The book describes circumcision not just as a sign of the covenant with Abraham, but as an eternal law, established at the beginning of creation. This practice was inscribed on the heavenly tablets and upheld by angels, making it a universal principle rather than a cultural tradition. By participating in this covenant, Abraham and his descendants aligned themselves with the divine order and reaffirmed their role as God's chosen people. Abraham's faith is tested most profoundly in the story of the binding of Isaac, known as the Akedah. Jubilees retells this story with added layers of spiritual and cosmic significance. According to the book, this test wasn't just about Abraham's obedience, it was part of the ongoing struggle between good and evil. Mastema, the leader of the fallen angels, challenged Abraham's faith, hoping to prove him unworthy of God's favor. But Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his beloved son demonstrated his unwavering trust in God, silencing Mastema and affirming the strength of the covenant. This moment, pivotal in Genesis, is elevated in Jubilees to a cosmic battle between righteousness and rebellion. Abraham's faithfulness wasn't just a personal victory, it was a triumph for the divine order, ensuring that the covenant would continue through Isaac and his descendants. Angels play an active role in this story, intervening at the last moment to stop the sacrifice and reaffirm God's promises to Abraham. Jubilees portrays Abraham as a man whose life was deeply intertwined with the cosmic plan of God. His rejection of idolatry, his adherence to the eternal laws, and his role as a teacher and patriarch all point to a life lived in harmony with the divine rhythm. Through his obedience, Abraham became a beacon of righteousness, guiding humanity back to the sacred order from which it had strayed. This expanded portrayal of Abraham challenges us to see him not just as a historical figure, but as a spiritual model. His story reminds us that faith is not just belief, it is action, obedience, and alignment with God's will. By following the example of Abraham, we too can participate in the cosmic plan, living lives that reflect the harmony of creation. Jacob, the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, is a central figure in both the Bible and the Book of Jubilees. However, Jubilees offers a deeper, more cosmic perspective on his life and his role in God's divine plan. Jacob's journey is portrayed not just as a personal story of faith and family, but as a pivotal chapter in the unfolding of the eternal covenant. Through Jacob, the sacred laws and promises of God are passed down, ensuring that his descendants would carry forward the divine mission. Jubilees emphasizes that Jacob was chosen from birth to continue the covenant established with Abraham and Isaac. Even before he and his brother Esau were born, their destinies were revealed. Esau, driven by impulse and rebellion, would stray from God's plan, while Jacob, despite his flaws, would remain faithful to the covenant. This predestination underscores the cosmic significance of Jacob's role as the father of the chosen people. The book expands on the well-known story of Jacob and Esau's struggle for the birthright. While Genesis describes Jacob's cunning and Esau's impulsiveness, Jubilees frames this conflict within the broader context of divine purpose. Jacob's actions, though questionable from a human perspective, are portrayed as necessary for fulfilling God's plan. Esau's rejection of his birthright symbolizes his disconnection from the sacred laws, while Jacob's determination reflects his commitment to preserving the covenant. Jubilees also provides additional details about Jacob's vision at Bethel, where he sees a ladder stretching from earth to heaven with angels ascending and descending. This moment is not just a personal revelation. It is a cosmic confirmation of Jacob's role in the divine order. The angels on the ladder represent the ongoing connection between heaven and earth, a connection that Jacob is destined to uphold through his obedience to God's laws. As Jacob's story unfolds, Jubilees places special emphasis on the births of his 12 sons. Each birth is described as part of a divine plan, with the timing and order preordained by God. These 12 sons are not just the heads of tribes, they are the foundation of a nation chosen to uphold the eternal covenant. Jubilees describes how Jacob instructed his sons in the laws of God, ensuring that the sacred teachings would be passed down to future generations. The book also highlights Jacob's role as a keeper of the sacred calendar. Like Abraham and Isaac before him, Jacob observed the Sabbath and other holy days, aligning his life with the divine rhythm. Jubilees portrays Jacob as a model of faithfulness, a man who lived in harmony with God's laws and guided his family to do the same. His adherence to the cosmic calendar ensured that the 12 tribes would remain connected to the sacred order. One of the most fascinating aspects of Jacob's story in Jubilees is the prophetic vision of his descendants. The book describes how each of Jacob's sons would go on to lead a tribe, with specific roles and responsibilities within the nation of Israel. These tribes were not just political entities. They were spiritual stewards, tasked with preserving the laws written on the heavenly tablets. Through their obedience, the 12 tribes would serve as a light to the nations, demonstrating the harmony and order of God's creation. Jubilees also addresses the ongoing conflict between Jacob's descendants and those of Esau. This struggle, rooted in the brothers' rivalry, is portrayed as a microcosm of the larger cosmic battle between good and evil. Esau's line represents rebellion and opposition to God's plan, while Jacob's line embodies faithfulness and obedience. This conflict, Jubilees suggests, will continue throughout history, culminating in the ultimate triumph of God's people. Through the lens of Jubilees, Jacob's life becomes a powerful example of how faith and obedience shape not only individuals but entire nations. His story challenges us to see our own lives as part of a greater plan, where every choice and every action carries eternal significance. By following Jacob's example of faithfulness, we too can align ourselves with the divine rhythm and participate in the unfolding of God's cosmic purpose. Joseph's story is one of the most dramatic and beloved narratives in the Bible, filled with betrayal, resilience, and ultimate triumph. In the Book of Jubilees, however, Joseph's life takes on an even deeper significance. His journey is not just a tale of personal perseverance, but a prophetic foreshadowing of the redemption of Israel. Through Joseph, Jubilees reveals the intricate ways in which God's cosmic plan unfolds, even in the face of human sin and suffering. Jubilees begins Joseph's story with a closer look at his brothers' betrayal. While Genesis describes their jealousy and hatred, Jubilees frames their actions as a grave sin against the divine order. The brothers' decision to sell Joseph into slavery is not just a personal failing, it's a violation of the eternal laws written on the heavenly tablets. This act disrupts the harmony of Jacob's family, setting off a chain of events that will ultimately lead to both suffering and salvation. As Joseph is taken to Egypt, Jubilees emphasizes the presence of angels guiding and protecting him. These divine messengers ensure that Joseph remains faithful to God despite his hardships, aligning his life with the sacred laws. Jubilees portrays Joseph's rise to power in Egypt not as a mere stroke of fortune, but as part of a cosmic plan preordained by God. His success serves a greater purpose: to preserve Jacob's family during a time of famine, and to set the stage for Israel's eventual deliverance. One of the key themes in Jubilees is the idea that Joseph's life mirrors the larger story of Israel. Just as Joseph is betrayed, sold into slavery, and later exalted, the nation of Israel will experience bondage in Egypt before being redeemed by God. This parallel underscores the prophetic nature of Joseph's journey, showing how individual lives are woven into the greater tapestry of God's plan. Jubilees also adds depth to the story of Joseph's moral integrity. In Genesis, Joseph's resistance to Potiphar's wife is a testament to his character, but in Jubilees, it becomes a reflection of his adherence to the divine laws. Joseph's commitment to purity and righteousness aligns him with the eternal covenant, making him a model of obedience even in the face of temptation. When Joseph is reunited with his brothers, Jubilees highlights the cosmic implications of their reconciliation. This moment is not just about family healing, it's about restoring the harmony disrupted by their earlier betrayal. Joseph's forgiveness is portrayed as an act of divine mercy, reflecting God's willingness to forgive and redeem his people. Through Joseph's actions, the sacred laws of justice and compassion are upheld, ensuring that Jacob's family can move forward as the chosen people. Jubilees also emphasizes the role of the sacred calendar in Joseph's story. The timing of events, from his betrayal to his rise to power, is portrayed as part of the divine order. By aligning his life with God's rhythm, Joseph becomes a conduit for God's plan, ensuring that the nation of Israel remains connected to the sacred laws. His stewardship of Egypt during the famine reflects not only his wisdom, but also his faithfulness to the cosmic principles that govern creation. As Joseph's life draws to a close, Jubilees offers a prophetic vision of the future. Joseph speaks to his brothers about the coming enslavement of their descendants, warning them to remain faithful to God's laws. This prophecy foreshadows the Exodus, connecting Joseph's story to the larger narrative of Israel's redemption. Jubilees portrays Joseph as a bridge between the patriarchs and the nation of Israel, ensuring that the eternal covenant will endure through the generations. The story of Joseph in Jubilees challenges us to see our own lives as part of a greater plan. His journey reminds us that even in the face of betrayal and suffering, God's purpose is at work, weaving our experiences into the fabric of his cosmic design. By remaining faithful to God's laws and aligning our lives with his rhythm, we can participate in the unfolding of his eternal plan, just as Joseph did. The Exodus, one of the most defining moments in biblical history, takes on a cosmic and predestined significance in the Book of Jubilees. While the Bible recounts the dramatic deliverance of the Israelites from Egyptian bondage, Jubilees connects this event to the eternal laws written on the heavenly tablets, portraying it as a carefully orchestrated step in God's divine timeline. Jubilees begins by explaining that the enslavement of Israel in Egypt was not a random act of oppression. It was foretold long before, written into the divine record as part of a larger cosmic plan. This perspective transforms the Exodus from a historical event into a pivotal moment in the eternal struggle between good and evil. The bondage of Israel symbolizes the corruption of God's creation, while their deliverance represents the restoration of divine order. One of the unique contributions of Jubilees is its focus on the role of angels during the Exodus. These celestial beings are depicted as active participants in the conflict between God and Pharaoh. While the biblical account highlights Moses as God's chosen leader, Jubilees expands the narrative by showing how angels were sent to carry out the plagues and execute God's judgment on Egypt. This angelic involvement emphasizes the spiritual dimensions of the Exodus, portraying it as a battle not just between nations, but between the forces of righteousness and rebellion. The plagues themselves are given new meaning in Jubilees. They are not merely acts of divine wrath, but cosmic signs, each one targeting a specific aspect of Egypt's idolatry. The Nile turning to blood, the darkness covering the land, and the death of the firstborn are portrayed as direct challenges to the false gods of Egypt, revealing their powerlessness before the one true God. Through these plagues, Jubilees underscores the sovereignty of God over all creation, both seen and unseen. The climactic moment of the Exodus, the parting of the Red Sea, is also elevated in Jubilees. The book describes how angels played a crucial role in guiding the Israelites through the sea and ensuring their safety. This miraculous event is framed as a cosmic victory, a moment when the forces of good triumph over evil and the divine order is restored. The destruction of Pharaoh's army in the sea is not just a military defeat, but a spiritual cleansing, a reminder that rebellion against God's laws leads to destruction. Jubilees also emphasizes the importance of time in the Exodus narrative. The departure from Egypt occurs on the 14th day of the first month, a date inscribed on the heavenly tablets. This precise timing reflects the sacred rhythm of the cosmic calendar, showing how the events of the Exodus were aligned with God's eternal plan. The observance of the Passover, instituted on this day, becomes a way for the Israelites to remember their deliverance and remain connected to the divine order. The giving of the law at Mount Sinai, which follows the Exodus, is portrayed in Jubilees as the culmination of this cosmic plan. While the biblical account focuses on the dramatic revelation of the Ten Commandments, Jubilees expands on this moment by emphasizing the eternal nature of the laws. These commandments were not created at Sinai. They were revealed, having existed since the foundation of the world. Moses, like the patriarchs before him, becomes a steward of these eternal truths, tasked with ensuring that the nation of Israel lives in harmony with God's will. Jubilees also connects the Exodus to the larger story of redemption. The deliverance from Egypt is portrayed as a foreshadowing of the ultimate restoration of creation. Just as God rescued Israel from bondage, He will one day redeem all of creation, restoring the harmony disrupted by sin and rebellion. The Exodus becomes a microcosm of this cosmic story, a reminder that God's plan for humanity is both personal and universal. Through its expanded account of the Exodus, Jubilees challenges us to see this event not just as a moment in history, but as a critical step in the unfolding of God's eternal plan. The involvement of angels, the precise timing, and the cosmic significance of the plagues and deliverance all point to a world governed by divine order. By reflecting on the Exodus through the lens of Jubilees, we are reminded of the power of God's laws and the importance of living in alignment with His will. The Book of Jubilees concludes its sweeping narrative by focusing on the eternal covenant between God and humanity, revealing how this divine agreement shapes not just the past and present, but also the ultimate destiny of creation. The book's vision of the future is one of restoration, where the harmony of the cosmic order is fully re-established and God's kingdom reigns supreme. Jubilees emphasizes that the covenant established with Adam, renewed through Noah, and carried forward by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is eternal. This covenant, written on the heavenly tablets, binds all of creation to God's laws. Humanity's role in this agreement is not passive. It requires active participation through obedience to the divine commandments. By following the sacred calendar, observing the Sabbath, and living in alignment with God's laws, humanity fulfills its part of the cosmic agreement. The book offers a prophetic vision of the end of days, describing a time when the rebellion and corruption introduced by the fallen angels and humanity's sins will be completely eradicated. This ultimate restoration is portrayed as the culmination of God's plan, where the world is brought back into perfect harmony. The angels who remained faithful will play a central role in this renewal, ensuring that the divine order is upheld and that all rebellion is silenced. A key element of this vision is the role of Mastema, the leader of the fallen angels, and his ultimate defeat. Jubilees describes how Mastema, who has been allowed limited influence over humanity, will be bound and cast into the abyss, never to disrupt creation again. This act symbolizes the final triumph of good over evil, where the forces of rebellion are permanently subdued. Jubilees also highlights the role of the righteous in this restoration. Those who remain faithful to God's laws, who align their lives with the cosmic order, will inherit the renewed creation. This inheritance is not merely physical, it is spiritual, a participation in the eternal harmony of God's kingdom. The righteous are described as shining like the stars, a reflection of their alignment with the divine will. The book's vision of the future is closely tied to its emphasis on the sacred calendar. Jubilees portrays the observance of time as central to humanity's relationship with God. In the renewed creation, the solar calendar will be universally observed, ensuring that Sabbaths, festivals, and holy days are celebrated in perfect alignment with the divine order. This restoration of sacred time reflects the broader restoration of all creation. Jubilees also offers a vision of a messianic kingdom, where God's chosen ruler will establish justice and righteousness on earth. This kingdom marks the beginning of a new age, where the laws written on the heavenly tablets will be fully realized. The Messiah's reign is portrayed as a time of peace and renewal, where the covenant is fulfilled and God's presence dwells with humanity. The final judgment is another central theme in Jubilee's vision of the future. The book describes a day when all humanity will be judged according to their deeds. The wicked, who rebelled against God's laws, will face eternal destruction, while the righteous will be vindicated and rewarded. This judgment is not arbitrary. It reflects the eternal principles of justice inscribed on the heavenly tablets. Through its portrayal of the end of days, Jubilees invites readers to reflect on their own lives and their role in the cosmic story. The book challenges us to live in obedience to God's laws, to align ourselves with the sacred rhythms of creation, and to participate in the eternal covenant. By doing so, we not only prepare for the final restoration, but also contribute to the ongoing harmony of God's creation. The Book of Jubilees concludes with a powerful message of hope. Despite the rebellion, corruption, and suffering that have marked human history, God's plan remains unshaken. The divine order, upheld by the heavenly tablets and carried forward by the covenant, will ultimately prevail. In the end, all creation will be brought back into harmony, reflecting the glory of the Creator and the beauty of His eternal plan.
Thank you for joining us today on Let Us Pray. If you or a loved one is in need of prayer, we invite you to leave a comment with your name or the name of the person you would like us to pray for. Our community of believers will join together to pray for you and for all those who have requested prayer. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Please share this video with someone who needs it. If you have any specific prayer requests, please let us know in the comments. We are here to pray with you and for you. May God bless you and bring peace and comfort to your life. Amen.